Good evening and welcome to Northern Hills presentation of our online and mobile tool, MoneyDesktop. In the next few weeks, MoneyDesktop will be called Money Map. After the launch of our upgraded mobile and online banking platforms, before we begin, I ask that you please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. If you prefer, you can use the chat feature in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen to submit your questions. I would now like to introduce our presenter this evening, Dr. Trent Alter, who is a solution consultant with MX Technologies, the company that provides us with this amazing tool. Welcome, Trent.
Thank you very much, Marty. Appreciate it. So I don't mean to kind of throw a wrench in what Marty just shared, but as a former professor, I welcome questions anytime. And so please, if you do have any questions, just feel free to take yourselves off mute. Luckily, you can't hit me with any tomatoes during this presentation, which is nice. I feel nice and safe in my extra bedroom here at home. But I hope everybody's doing well. Those of you, Connie, Shannon, and Jill, who have joined us live and in person. And for those of you who are watching after the fact, I hope that information that I share this evening is helpful, relevant, and helps you to better succeed in managing your finances, right? Because that's why we're here. This is what I'm here to kind of help you learn a little bit more about, answer some questions that you might have, and hopefully we'll all kind of learn a little bit together and be able to share some experiences. So a little bit more about me. My background is actually in communications. I was a broadcaster for a local news station here in Salt Lake City before I became a broadcast director for a couple local nonprofits. Then I decided to, submit myself to torture and go back to school to get a PhD at the University of Texas in Austin, where I studied journalism and kind of the convergence of social media and branding and a couple of things that way. After I graduated, I took a position teaching different subjects in the communications field at Washington State University before I realized that there was nothing and no industry in the world that moved as slowly as academia, except for maybe banking. And so that was kind of one of those things where I was just like, at least I feel somewhat at home, but I did want to get back into the tech industry. And so I became a solutions consultant. And so my job day in and day out is to meet with financial institutions and individuals like yourselves who are looking to solve a specific problem and provide them with the tools and the resources necessary, help them to identify the issue, and then provide them with the tools necessary to solve those problems and those issues. And so kind of as we jump into this, one of the primary drivers that we have at MX are our mission and our vision. Our mission, which is empowering the world to be financially strong, is due to the fact that there are so many issues that stem from finances. And I'm going to share a couple of brief, somewhat startling statistics, in my opinion, around why it's so important for you to pay attention and to learn how to manage your finances and what this can potentially do to help you in your everyday life. Because as you see here, there is a financial impact to everyone that feels the experience of financial stress, right? So 77% of parents, 75% of millennials, 76% of Gen Xers, they feel and experience high levels of stress due to their finances. And that stress doesn't just stop at, oh, I'm stressed, but it actually can result in a lot of additional systemic and societal problems that we face in our current society. One, attempted suicide, another one, divorce rates, and then those that honestly feel as though they may actually pass away before they have an opportunity to pay off their debt. I know that my brother right now, he's kind of facing not the divorce, but he's facing a lot of the thoughts around debt and being able to pay that off because he's just finishing med school. And so he's got this big mountain that he's got to take care of. And he's in the process of trying to find a job that'll help him to pay that off. But this is the way that financial institutions can help by providing various tools that will introduce an opportunity to manage your personal finances. And that's one of the reasons why here at MX, we're grateful for Northern Hills and what they are doing and partnering with us to deliver tools like MoneyDesktop and the financial wellness components of how to manage your finances so that we can help you to avoid some of that stress and to make it a little bit easier. 4 in 10 adults, that's 40% of the United States, can't cover an unexpected $400 expense. That could be new tires. That could be a medical emergency. That could be a friend who's in need, right? A pandemic that we're all kind of starting to come out of. And there have been so many people who have suffered at the hands of this invisible, almost imperceptible companion that we have been living the last year and few months with. And this is one of those things that drives that mission and that vision of MX, of empowering the world to be financially strong and providing visibility to your finances the way that they should be, right? And so the primary problem that exists is this friction that exists, this difficulty of understanding our finances. Just out of curiosity, of the 5 people who are here on the call, how many of you, by raise of hand, have ever seen a transaction come through either on a statement or in your online banking, mobile banking, that you did not recognize? Anybody have that experience where you didn't recognize a specific transaction?
A couple of them.
Okay, so in that experience, did any one of you call the credit union, call your bank, call your financial institution, and then learn that it actually wasn't fraud? It actually was a transaction. You were reminded of when it took place, where it took place, what it was for, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh yeah, my bad. Thanks for your help. And you hang up. Anybody have that experience? Yeah, I've had that experience myself. It actually was just a couple weeks ago. And I was just like, what the heck is this? And it happened to be my wife purchased something on Facebook for one of my children. And it was just totally out of the blue. And I was like, what the heck is this $56 charge? Like, why am I paying for this? And sometimes it's a lack of communication, but sometimes it's something that you can't even decipher what that code is. And so one of the things that all of us have kind of started to come to expect is an ease of use that comes with systems like Amazon, like Spotify, like Netflix, where all of a sudden you're consuming this information, whether it's a streaming service, you're watching your favorite, episode of Tiger King, or maybe you're watching a Netflix documentary, or maybe you're purchasing something on Amazon and you get that one click to buy, right? These companies know who we are because they have data, and they use data effectively to help us improve and drive efficiency in our life. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the company Stitch Fix. It is a phenomenal company that I swear is going to change the fact that I will never step into a department store to go shopping ever again, right? They know me. I put in my measurements for my clothing, and they send me stuff and everything fits. I don't know how they do it. It's like they're magicians or elves or something. But that's the type of experience that all of us have come to expect. And that's the type of experience that MX hopes to drive through connectivity, being able to connect all of your various accounts in one place, right? You can grab your HSAs, you can grab your insurance, you can grab your investment accounts, you can grab your savings accounts and your checking accounts, money market, student loans, personal loans, your mortgage, your car loan, everything, put it in one spot so you can see everything all at once. Then beyond that, we take all of that information and we clean that data. We make it easily understandable, easily decipherable. So you don't have to worry about, what is this transaction? Like, I don't recognize XYZ 32578Y X23 CVS something, something, something. And all of a sudden you're able to identify it as, oh, that's CVS. That was the prescription that I picked up the other day, right? And then by driving that connectivity and that data into an experience that is easily usable and something that is just logical, has a good, easy flow, you have the opportunity to truly drive your own experiences, drive your own finances. So this is kind of what MX does. Everything is about data. Everything is about understanding and helping you to understand yourself through all of these various things that you see scrolling through that money experience, your finances, your experience, your growth, money, insights, lending, budgets, fraud, all that kind of stuff is all going to be powered by this data. So as a former journalist and a journalism professor, these are kind of the questions that I always ask. So when it comes to managing your finances, there's a professor a late professor who just passed away in the last year or so, named Clayton Christensen. He was a Harvard business professor, and his whole thing was accomplishing jobs to be done. Everything that every technology that we use is meant to accomplish or do a specific job. Sometimes we use food to satisfy hunger. Sometimes we use food, like myself, to satisfy boredom. Sometimes we use our phone to satisfy entertainment or boredom as well, right? So when it comes to managing your finances, this is the job that you're trying to do, right? You're personally managing your finances. And these are the questions that I always told my students they needed to ask. Who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? Any journalism professor, anybody who's trying to tell a story needs to answer these questions. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. When it comes to managing your finances, the cleansing of that data, the easily consumable piece of information is, all right, so who did I pay? Can I make that easier by cleaning the data? Absolutely. What did I pay? Typically, that's never a question. That's something that's always kind of been the foremost thing. That is the one piece of data that the financial industry has always gotten right. They can tell you how much you just lost, right? Or how much you just gained from your paycheck. When did I pay it? Oftentimes that can be kind of, is it still pending? Like, when's it going to come through? Like, when is my paycheck going to be here? Where did I pay for it? Why did I pay for it? And how did I pay for it? So I'm just going to quickly show you a brief glimpse into what these transactions should look like within this tool, right? This is something that you might be more familiar with, whether it's Wells Fargo or Chase. You can see kind of how there's some difficulty in understanding some of these transactions. And then with MX, how clear and concise this visibility can be. But as we go through some of these tools and some of the pieces of information that I want to share, and hopefully I can then answer some of your questions as well, what I'd like to do is take these things and these questions maybe one step further. Should I pay for it? Based on my budget, based on what I have in my account, based on the goals that I've set and the debts that I'm trying to pay off. Should I pay for it? And then maybe when? Maybe it's not a question of should, but when should I pay for it, right? It could be a situation where as long as you wait for a couple of days, you're going to be fine. But having that visibility, having that knowledge around where your finances currently are, allow you the flexibility of truly taking control of your finances the way that they should be in your life. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share a different screen really quickly. Have you guys been seeing all of my slides?
No, well, we just see the Northern Hills one, the succeeding in managing your finances. Oh, no, I thought maybe you were waiting until you signed in.
Oh my heavens. Well, you know, we could go back through all this. There's me and my family.
Okay.
A little bit of that background. And Marty, I apologize. I should have realized. Right, here's MX's mission and vision. All about empowering the world to be financially strong. Here are those statistics that I was sharing that I thought you all could see, which would have been a lot more effective, I think. Here are some of those statistics around the financial stress leading to actual crisis, right? This is where that becomes very, very real. Then we have 53% of millennials and 32% of Americans overall spend no time managing their finances, probably because it's difficult. It can be hard. but we try to make it easier. 4 in 10 US adults couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense. And then once again, that problem of how difficult it is to manage those finances. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of quickly drive through this. These are the questions that I was talking about. Who did I pay? What did I pay? When did I pay it? Where did I pay it? Why did I pay for it? And how did I pay for it? And then this is the visibility that I'm talking about in the way of clean, understandable transactions. Right? You can see here on the left, Wells Fargo. On the right, maybe Chase or American Express, somebody else that doesn't necessarily provide that type of data cleansing. And then what we can do through MX, through MoneyDesktop. And then those additional questions of should I pay for it and when should I pay for it? Okay, so now I'll change the,
Very nice.
the screen. Man, that's one of those things as you're doing a demo in this world, it's just like, I'm thinking everything's going along hunky-dory. I apologize for how boring the first 10, 15 minutes must have been for everybody. Okay, so as we kind of jump into this new component, this new piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these questions on the screen on the left. And this should be an environment or something that all of you are familiar with, right? Your online banking. In order to get access to what MX can provide through this personal financial management tool, all you do is come up here to personal finance. And right here, you'll see MoneyDesktop, access now. By clicking on this button, you'll be taken to a completely different experience where you're going to be able to add all of your accounts. Your Northern Hills accounts should automatically come in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step into a different window really quickly to kind of go through this a little bit more succinctly and a little bit bigger so everybody can see it a little bit better. So this is kind of what we have available to you for you to consume various pieces of information. So you can see here all of my various accounts, right? And as long as we're here, I might as well show you. You have checking, savings, investment accounts, property accounts, credit cards, any type of account that you might have. My wife recently, I actually just got this in the mail yesterday. I'll show you how easy it is to connect an additional account, right? You click on the add account button, and my wife and I decided together, although I feel as though it was kind of a dick told to me, that we were going to be renovating our kitchen this summer. So she and I went and applied for a Lowe's credit card. So now here, I type in my credentials for my Lowe's credit card, and it's going to connect that card. And if I want to, I can navigate away for a second and go in, and you'll see up here at the top, it's still connecting. But in just a moment, you're going to see how much it's costing me to renovate my kitchen by purchasing new cabinets. But what's going to happen is all of a sudden you have the ability to see all of your transactions, all of your account balances in one place, and then step into the transactions. And I'm sure you can see how this differs from the other type of experience that you might have, even within the other windows of Northern Hills, right? So if we come back here, if I go back to my accounts page and I step into my savings account or my checking account, this is the type of visibility to the transactions that we have natively. And then through MX cleansing, right? We throw in that logo, we grab these descriptions that should be something like this, the XXX 123 Netflix VND number 10, right? And we narrow that down just to Netflix. And not only do we simplify and add that logo, but we also are going to automatically categorize that data into a specific area of spend. Now, the accuracy level is not 100% because almost nobody can be 100% because there are long-tail mom and pop businesses that I've never heard of here in Utah, right? But the accuracy with which we categorize is the best in the industry at 95% accurate. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a different way of categorizing things than my neighbor, Nate. Nate, he and his family, they have a very different lifestyle. My kids are all 6 and under. His kids are all 10 and older. They have very different things that they're trying to accomplish when managing their finances. And so what I can do is if I come in here to this Mavic Country store, other people might classify this as gas. But I will tell you that for me, this is actually going to be a kid's expense. This is where I go to take my kids to get ice cream. So if I recategorize this as kids, I can set this as a rule. So every single time from now on, when I come in, it'll be recategorized as kids, or I can just do it this one time. So I'll just go ahead and set that. Now, all of a sudden you see that it's kids spend instead of gas, and you can see which account it's coming from. So all of my transactions are in one place. I don't have to go from one account to another account to another account, searching for that one transaction, because I don't remember if I put it on my Chase credit card or my American Express, or if I paid for it with a check. I just remember that I bought it. So at this point, does anybody have any questions around the data cleansing, these transactions, what you can do with them, how this specific piece answers who did I pay, what did I pay, when did I pay for it, and what was it for? Any questions on that?
Looks like they got it.
Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay, so the next step that I'd like to kind of call out is you do have the opportunity to filter down. So when my wife and I do our budgeting, we have an account for each one of our kids that we don't really want to pay attention to. We don't want to see it when we're looking over our finances to see where we are. So I can actually come in here and filter out specific accounts. So let's just say that this investment accounts, I don't really care to see those because I don't want to see how low the balances are. It's kind of depressing, especially having to pay off a PhD program. So I'm going to turn those off. I'm going to turn off one of my savings accounts because it's for my kids. Where'd that go? The savings one. So Epic Savings, that's for my son. So I'm going to turn those off, and all of a sudden those transactions are removed. And I can focus on just what I'm spending, where I'm actually transacting, and not worry about seeing two different transactions, one being a debit from my checking account as a transfer into my savings account for my son's college tuition in the future, and then the credit coming into that savings account, and I see it twice, right? I can just pull that out, filter that down. I can look at a specific timeline or a specific time frame. Let's just say I want to look at just last month because I'm doing the budget for last month. So I'm going to turn that on. Just look at May 1st to May 31st, and I can see all of the different transactions in one place for last month. Okay. You can export this if you want to. You can add a manual transaction. So let's say that you paid one of the young men in the neighborhood to mow your lawn, right? That was a business that I ran all growing up, and I always got paid in cash. But it is something that you still want to track some of those expenses. So you can manually add a cash transaction if you'd like to help maintain the full visibility and management of your finances. Okay. Once you have all of that kind of thing in place, then you can come to this spending wheel. And so what this is going to do is this is looking just at the current month. If I want to, I can backtrack to last month, and I can see my spend and my income side by side and see how much I spent in each category of spend at that overarching category, right? MX has 119 out of the box, auto categorized areas in which you could spend money. I'll just kind of give you a brief visibility to that. So if I come back here to that change of kids, you can see these are the parent categories: auto and transportation, bills and utilities, business, education, on down the line, pets, taxes, travel, uncategorized. So that's where that extra 5% might land. And it will prompt you at the top to categorize those that haven't been categorized automatically. So anything that doesn't fall into a category, we will let you know. But within these, you'll see that under entertainment, you have amusement, arts, movies and DVDs, music, newspapers and magazines. Under home, which is where I feel like I'm spending most of my money right now, we have home improvement, which seems to be my favorite category. home insurance, home services. So you can see how all of these kind of roll up into that overarching category of home. And that's what we see when we come to spending. So inside home, there was $1,500 and $1,500 of spend. So if I click on the home category, I can actually click into the transactions and see that it was home supplies for that renovation project and my mortgage. Okay. If you want to click into food and dining, what are these transactions? Oh, well, Subway, Starbucks, Winco, Blue Apron, Happy Sumo. So all of a sudden you can see what these transactions are. And let's go to health and fitness and look at this. So let's just say that this Gold's Gym transaction shouldn't be health and fitness because I use this as my entertainment. It is my escape from the world. I don't want to necessarily categorize it as health and fitness. I want to change it to entertainment. I can come in here, change this category right from this window to entertainment, come back, do it this time only, come back out here, and all of a sudden this is going to update. And if I come back to health and fitness, it's no longer there. And so we try our best to help make sure that that transaction is going to reflect in the area of spend that makes the most sense. I'm going to change that back to the gym so my wife doesn't get mad at me for categorizing those things incorrectly. But it is something where we try to make this as easily understandable as possible for you. Yes, always do this. So I'm setting up a user transaction rule. So I'll give you another example. There is I don't know, do you have Winco grocery stores?
No.
Where you are? Okay.
No.
Winco is like my wife and my favorite place to go buy ice cream because they carry Umpqua cookie dough and chocolate brownie thunder. Mm. And we are ice cream connoisseurs. So we actually have, every single time we purchase something at Winco, it is automatically classified as ice cream. But like I mentioned about my buddy Nate next door, he doesn't shop at Winco for ice cream. So it doesn't make any sense for the system itself to apply my transaction classification to Nate. So we have the ability for you to establish transaction categorization rules for yourself personally. And that way you can fine tune how you want to manage your finances, how you want to categorize your spend, where you want it to see it based on your budget. And that kind of takes us into this next step of understanding your bubble budgets, right? My kids love flinging these things around. We actually hired some EA Sports video game designers to help us with this product and pulled them away from the video game industry. Because now what I can do is I can actually see that inside here, I have $137 that I've spent out of my 400, which is why it is still green. But when it comes to entertainment, I've overspent by quite a bit, right? But what I can do is if, let's just say I come in here to the health and fitness, I can have a sub budget that I can create for the gym. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. $32.36. And you can see I overspent that sub budget by $1. And so what ends up happening is you'll see this little red ring inside this to tell me that my sub budget went over, but I still didn't go over on my overall budget for the parent category. Does that make sense? Any questions on how these bubble budgets work or how you might be able to manage those? You ladies are a talkative bunch. I will tell you what. I do not know what to do with the sheer amount of questions that I am fielding right now.
I play with this all the time, so.
Oh, it is so much fun. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this because I don't want, like I said, my wife looks at this quite a bit. And so the next step that I wanted to call out is trends. So if you want to see kind of how your categories of spend, how your budgets have been over time, you have the ability to take a look at the last year. So if I look at this, my travel budget, right? October, November, December to go visit family for Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween's kind of a big deal for my family and me. So we traveled a little bit there, but you can see absolutely zero travel for January, February, March, April, and May. We're getting back out there this month. We're trying to have a little bit more fun, let our kids actually get out of the house. It's it's kind of hard to contain all four of those 6 and unders in the house for that long. But you can see how it kind of transitions over time. And then you see this income level just to try and help you maintain the visibility around keeping your spend under your income. We do the same thing here in the budgets as well. You'll see the spend to income lines down here at the bottom that afford you a quick visibility to, have I overspent this month? Yes, I have. Am I waiting for my next paycheck this coming week? Yes, I am. Right. And so that's the kind of information that you can get from trends, is the visibility over a certain period of time to how your ebbs and flows have come within certain categories of spend. Debts allows you the opportunity to automatically, whenever you add a liability account, whether it's a credit card, a mortgage payment, you can see my Lowe's credit card came in. Yikes. So all of a sudden we have the visibility to all of these different payoffs, all the APRs associated with those cards or those loans, the amount that's due on a regular basis. And then you have some visibility to, if you were to snowball, if you were to apply the minimum balance or the minimum payment here to the Capital One card, and then both of these to the Chase, as you pay them off in succession, you could actually become debt-free in this amount of time, as opposed to much further down the road in March of, down here in 33, right? All of a sudden you can accelerate that by about 2 years if you decide to leverage that snowball method. And we give you some information if you want to understand kind of how that snowball method works, right? So these tools are all about educating you around how to manage your finances, as well as making it easy to do so. Net worth, this is going to track your assets to liabilities and just lump everything together to show you how you're doing when it comes to your overall net worth. We have a goals widget that allows you to actually take all of this different information and figure out how to pay it off. You can see, since I've added an additional credit card, all of a sudden I have another debt payoff goal that I need to pay attention to. So I got click in here. This one, I need to project or set a specific goal as to when I'm going to pay that off. But you have savings goals, retirement goals, debt payoff goals. Then we have access to our investment accounts. And I turned off all of those back with the filter back here. So I'm going to just come back here, turn all those back on so that I can show you what the investments tab looks like. Right. So now we can actually take a look at our investments. We can see our various holdings, how they've done over the last little bit, whether or not we've had a gain or a loss, and where we're invested, depending on the different mutual plans or brokerages that we might be leveraging at the time. The last piece that I want to kind of show you in this tool, and then I'll kind of open it up for any questions that I might be able to answer, is this piece around cash flow. So this is kind of getting at the question of, should I pay for it, or when should I pay for it? So this is going to allow you to set up basically a calendar, and it's going to automatically surface up from your transactions different recommendations around things that you may want to add. So I have my Questar gas bill that comes in every month, same time. So I'm going to set it monthly and hit save right here. Then I have my payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and set that monthly as well. I've got my other payroll on the 21st of the month, so I'll save that. My Geico car insurance, save that puppy. My cell phone bill, my electric bill. So as I add each of these that are being recommended to me by the system, right? Because we take a look at your historical transactions as we cleanse them, as we make them more easily decipherable. And we're then able to kind of surface up all of this different information. So I can put in my gym membership here, my cable bill for internet and television, right? All of these different things, my car payment, or I can actually create my own. So if I know that I'm going to have my son's violin lessons, so what I'm going to do is I can either look for it through a past transaction, or I can start from scratch and just put in that information. So I know that my son's violin lessons cost $75 a month, and we always pay it monthly on the 1st. So let's do the 1st. except it's gonna wig out because I'm doing it in the past. So it is an expense monthly on the 1st, and I hit save. I have to put in a payee. Suzuki Violin Studio. Right, put that in there, and I hit save. Oh, and I have to select an account that it's coming from, my checking account. All of a sudden, you can see kind of how the ebbs and flows of my different bills coming in affect what I'm doing in the way of my expenses, and maybe perhaps when the best time to go shopping for groceries or when the best time to go get a haircut might be, depending on kind of where I am in that ebb and flow of different bills at different times of the month. Right? It will help me to avoid this, having this out of whack a little bit. That's what that whole cash flow widget is intended to help with. So I've kind of given you, obviously, a real quick crash course on how these tools can help you to manage your finances. Are there any specific questions or circumstances that you might have experienced that I might be able to kind of show you how you would respond to those circumstances or that specific use case within these tools?
Now, are you able to delete and add accounts as you go?
Absolutely.
Let's say you add a bill from a continuing bill from the lumberyard, for instance, but you paid off another lumberyard. So you can add the one and take the other one out then?
Absolutely. So are you talking, I would assume, Connie, based on that question, you're talking about within this cash flow? Within like that scheduled payment? Okay. So yeah, what I could do is I could come in here and let's just say that I canceled Comcast. I can actually come in here, click on these 3 dots and delete that and delete the whole series or all future events.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if I delete all future events, it will leave the one in for this month right there, but it will delete it in the future. And you won't see that anymore. But to kind of answer your question in another way, let's just say that you finish paying off a car loan and you don't want to see that anymore, period, ever. Like this credit card right here that I don't want to see because it's kind of depressing. I can actually just go ahead and hide the account, mark it as closed, remove it, and it's no longer there. It's marked as closed. I could actually come in here and delete it as well if I wanted to, or mark it as open, reopen it, and it's going to repopulate. So you do have full control over what you want to see, how you want to see it. But the whole intent and purpose of this type of technology is to give you visibility to all of your financial picture in one place. Any other questions? Shannon, Jill, anything?
That works too, like if you have certificates of deposit and say you decide to reinvest the certificate to a different term, and of course one gets closed out, one gets opened, you can do the exact same thing with your certificates as well.
Yes. It's great clarification. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah. One other thing probably we should mention too is when you have these other accounts that you've linked on here and aggregated on here, say you go and you change your password on, say, another credit union that you're going to have listed in your banks, it's going to notify you that there's an issue on this side, and it's going to ask you to put in the new password and update that. And then it'll bring everything back in again once it's updated.
So that is true with the majority as of right now of different institutions, but there are specific institutions, for example, Chase, Capital One, Citibank, where because MX is more focused on trying to improve that connection experience and the reliability of that data flow, we actually have come to agreements with those specific institutions that once we establish that connection and once you give permission to MoneyDesktop and Northern Hills to consume that data, they actually hand us basically, in effect, a token. And we're not actually using your credentials. We never see your credentials. It's not in there. We're not saving them somewhere. We actually have a token that means we're going to continue to be able to get access. And even if you do change your password for some reason, it's not going to break that connection. By using those modern connectivity channels and those tokenized connections, even if you were to change your password with Chase or with Capital One or Citibank, if you have an account with one of those institutions, that one would never break. Any other questions or insight that I might be able to provide to help you kind of as you manage your finances?
It's really clear to me. Looks good.
And
I have a question. How protected is this device, this application, from being hacked?
that's a great question. So there are two different ways that we could talk about that. We could talk about it in the way of how secure is your online and mobile banking with Northern Hills, or how secure is the data that MX is collecting? Which way are you, like, which of those two is kind of where your mind is at with that question, Connie?
Well, it appears that you're putting a lot of data into MX,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just wondering, how easy would it be for somebody to get in there and get that information?
Not at all. The way that we have our system structured with security and different encryptions and that kind of thing, we actually keep up with modern military grade encryption. We have everything separated out. So even your personal identifiable information isn't connected to your accounts. And so as it comes in, we separate everything out. We have the data when it comes to the transactions, and then we pass that back to Northern Hills. Northern Hills has this key that they use to kind of connect. These transactions belong to Connie, or these transactions belong to Shannon or Jill. And they kind of reassemble that in the back end to make it easily understandable for you. But your data is never in a position where it will be compromised. And we always have multiple layers of encryption and different keys that are rotating on a 30-minute time frame. And we have data centers that are locked down, but we have duplication in the event of a natural disaster so that we don't lose any of that data. That data is never subject to fraud or anything like that. So that's kind of, hopefully that answers your question.
Northern Hills also works very hard to get all of their vendors who provide all these kind of tools. We want them under our online banking and our mobile banking because it is more secure to be under our umbrella instead of making you go to a separate app. We used to have mobile check deposit on a separate app. And we have brought that in. We went to another vendor so we could bring it in to our mobile app and secure it that way. And it makes it easier for the member because it's all right there with one click. So.
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I can let class out early, right?
All I can tell you is sign on to MoneyDesktop, which will soon be Money Math. I got to remind you about that. Sign on there and just start adding some accounts and playing with it, because the more you use it, the more you'll become comfortable with it, and you're going to be amazed at what it can do for you. So I really recommend it.
No, thank you, Marty. And one last piece of advice or thought that I will share is, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to establish a budget before and how difficult that can be. One of the beautiful things about how MX leverages this data is that when you do connect to those accounts, through that cleansing process of being able to take those descriptions and all those transactions, make them more easily readable. If you decide you want to set up a budget that very first time, when you go into the tool, let me share my screen again and I'll kind of just show you what that would look like as you step in. Hopefully it hasn't signed me out. And it has, of course.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a
give-
security feature.
Right? I love that. So, okay, so I'm just logging in. Oh man. And of course I hit the cancel button on accident. Okay, so as we jump in here, so if I go to the personal finance and I go to access now through MoneyDesktop, the first time that I come to budgets, this is what it's going to look like, right? Start from scratch or auto generate a budget. This is the magic right here, this little blue button. If I click on auto generate, and if I had more transactions in these accounts, what it's going to do is automatically take the last 90 days of transactions, so the last 3 months, and based on that auto categorization, it will, in a matter of minutes, create a budget for you based on where you've spent your money in the last 90 days for you to then just simply adjust the budget. So for example, in the other tool, so if I go in here to adjust my budget, so let's say I need to increase my budget for home, I just come in here, edit the budget, change the amount to $1,550 instead of $1,450, except I need to edit a little bit more. So $1,585. Hit save, all of a sudden it goes yellow. That's how easy it is to adjust that budget. Right? You can see how much you spent out of how much is budgeted and easily make adjustments. So my financial budget, I don't know why that's so high. So if I go ahead and bring this down to 150, save that, depending on the size of the budget will determine how big or small that bubble is. So you can see where the majority of your spend is going, how that's impacted, and make those minor adjustments after you've hit this auto generate budgets feature. So hopefully that will be extremely beneficial and helpful for you as you set this up the very first time. Same thing with spending. As you get these transactions, that will automatically populate trends, debts, goals, all of those things. You'll set up that very first time, and then you should be good to go. So once again, I apologize for not actually sharing the PowerPoint as I was going through it on my own computer. I was enjoying it. So I hope that I was able to make up for the boring first 15 minutes.
It was very informative though. So, yes.
Thank you, Trent. That was very good. I liked it.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you. It was very informative.
Well, thank you, Connie, Shannon. I wish
Yes,
you all the
thank you.
best. And if you do need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to Marty. She can get a hold of myself or anybody over here on the MX side, and we're happy to help with whatever we can.
And I might be able to answer a few questions for you too, as well. So, and I thank you all for taking the time this evening to join us. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you
Thank
Okay.
you.
for setting it up.
Okay. Have a
Thanks,
great
folks.
evening, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take
Good
care.
Good night.
Night, Trent. Thank you so much.
Night, Marty.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.